Constantly checking and double checking. My bags were packed and ready to go. I had been waiting for this trip ever since I could remember, mentally counting down the days, getting closer to the trip, one by one, going to Chicago. I could hardly contain myself in all my excitement. It was the night before we left that it was hardest to sleep. Anticipation filled my body as I played through the trip in my head. Carefully planning the itinerary, I eventually drifted to sleep. I woke up to the break of daylight. I had already laid out my clothes the night before, so I was one of the first ones ready to go. I had also been excited for the flight since it would only be my second trip through the air. The car ride to LAX seemed to go on forever and the flight infinitely longer. During the flight, I mostly slept, which was about 4 hours long. We finally got to the Hard Rock Hotel where we would call home for the next week. The first day in Chicago was pretty uneventful, although the scenery and the atmosphere were different than California. The weather was the most noticeable the first day since it was really humid and the thick air made it hard to breathe. The weather eventually got cooler, and after that, it would change every 5 minutes. The only outing we had the first day was eating at Al's Beef, which was an Italian beef restaurant. Those were my favorite type of Chicago style food. And after that, the day seemed to slip by as we walked and enjoyed the scenery, getting to know our surroundings better. The second day, however, may have been my favorite part of the trip. It was a day that we were going to see the Chicago Cubs, my favorite baseball team, play the Baltimore Orioles. Before the game started, we were able to take a tour of the facilities and get a history lesson on the Cubs. I've gone to a handful of baseball games before, some Cubs and some Dodgers, but none of them have compared to the atmosphere of the game in Chicago. I could just feel the city's love for the team. Even better, they won against the Orioles, so I could see them fly the flag above the stadium. The second to last day I spent in Chicago was the tour of the tallest skyscraper in the city, Willis Tower, and a tour explaining the architecture of the city. Willis Tower measures 1,450 feet tall and is arranged in 9 different sections. We got a brief history on the tower's construction, but the main attraction lies in the view. When in the tower, I was able to pretty much see the entire city. It even has a recently implemented sky deck encased with glass where people can basically walk out in front of the building and look straight down and have a sense of being suspended in midair. Following the tour of Willis Tower, we also took a tour of the architecture of the city by boat. The tour gave us the history of Chicago and how certain buildings came to be. The tour guide also gave us insight on how the architects used inspiration to make their buildings, like wanting people to look at their work and be able to see the reflection of the sky as they pass through. They might have also worked for ways to spark new designs, such as curving the building. When it came to leaving Chicago, I felt like something had been taken from me. The time I spent in Chicago made me appreciate the culture found there and left me wanting to experience it more. The flight home was long and tiring, but even though I had been away from Chicago, being back at my own house after a week made me realize how good it felt to be back in California where was accustomed to.